My name is Yael. I'm going to talk with you about self-regulated strategies for online learning. And as Ron mentioned, I'm a PhD candidate at the Weizmann Institute. So I just said that I have two advisors, Professor Ron Blonder and Professor Inbal Tubi-Arad. Yes, can we see it? And Inbal also here with us in the webinar. And I'm not going to speak with you. The main goal of this topic, Ron, you can move to the next slide. So the main goal of this topic is self-regulated learning. I want to give you an overview of self-regulated learning framework, which is really important for the online learning. And I will use our research as an example to demonstrate this framework. And during the presentation, we will try to answer the question, what can be learned from self-regulated learning? Sometimes you will see the SRL in the presentation in order to improve the online teaching and learning. So first of all, let me give you an overview about online learning. How many of you experienced in online learning before the corona pandemic? You can write in the chat or even use the reaction of the Zoom and put something like that. If you experience in online learning before the corona pandemic. Okay, so some of you and some of you not. Okay, so before the corona pandemic, it was not obvious to be experienced in online learning. But still, we have research before this year when everyone almost everyone experienced in this platform. So when we think about online learning, it usually gives us flexibility. If we take, for example, an online course, you can learn from anywhere around the world, and it gives you the flexibility to learn when you want, whenever you want, and you have visualization for a complicated concept. And as a researcher, you also have access to data. But what we saw from research, that online courses usually have high dropout rate. And if you compare it for face-to-face courses, less participants will complete these kinds of courses. And also we have no direct interaction. If we were now, we're sitting in a big seminar room, the interaction between us would be different. So this is what we already knew before the corona pandemic. No, Ron, I'm still in the other slide. And the corona pandemic basically gave us a few more aspects to think about them. Another slide, Ron? There is a slide, this slide, yes. First of all, it was something that gave us advantages. We actually thought about, it gave us the opportunity to rethink about our pedagogy and maybe the way that we are learning. But in the opposite, there are much more emotional needs since the corona pandemic started, and we don't always have the opportunity to find an optional learning environment to learn at home. Before the corona pandemic, it was actually the choice of the students. Sometimes it was because the students need to work or maybe live far away from the university, but it still was a choice. This year, we don't have this choice anymore. And in this presentation, I'm going to share with you information that we learned before this pandemic. So first of all, I mentioned that in an online learning environment, we have high dropout rate when we compare it to a face-to-face learning. So it's not that I can pinpoint of exact rate of students that going to complete an online course. And when I speak about success, I speak about students who filled all the courses requirement. And it's different from course to course and from also the kind of the course. So for example, if I speak about academic courses, so 55 to 75 of the students that register to the course will complete it. If it's a professional courses, for example, a professional development course, around 50% of the students will complete the course. If we speak about massive online courses, which is the course that open to everyone who wants to try the course. It's not necessarily part of academic credit. So only 5 to 10% of the students will complete the course. And why it's really important to understand that it's before the corona pandemic, because, for example, academic course, if I register to an online course and I felt that it was not exactly the platform that was a convenience for me, I can register to another course in a face-to-face version. This year, it's not what happened. We still learn online, but still we can learn from it. So as I explained before, the online platform gave us flexibility to learn, gave us the flexibility to learn whenever we want. It gave us autonomy. It's not all the courses. Sometimes you have a course that you need to attend specifically in a day at a specific time, but sometimes you can choose when to see the lecture, when to learn. And this is why the self-regulated learning is so important in online learning. Self-regulated learning is we can define it as setting one's goal and manages one's own learning and performance. It means that the learner is actually responsible to his learning process, and he can learn independently. And of course, it's something that requires experience in learning. And all of us has some experience in learning from elementary school, from high school. And like every skill in life, there are levels of self-regulated learning. Some of us will be with a high level of self-regulated learning, and some of us with not a high level of self-regulated learning. But I want to show you an example of the self-regulated learning categories, and also think about and speak how we can improve it if we need. We can move to the next slide. So as I mentioned before, I'm going to use our research just to give you an example. But so in order for you to understand the content, I will first describe our research questions. So we ask what categorize students' learning behavior in an online chemistry course, and what is the earliest stage in the online course in which we can predict course success, and which course indicators are required to make this prediction. In order to do this, we use the educational background and demographic profile of the students, interviews, and also we analyzed online learning behaviors. And of course, we did it under keeping the ethical guidelines and the privacy of the students. If we speak about the participant of the research, so our data are from 3 online general chemistry courses delivered at the Open University of Israel in the years 2016 and 2019, a total number of 804 students, undergraduate students, and each course comprised from 12 online sessions and assignments, mandatory and optional assignments. In the general chemistry A and general chemistry course, we also had lab sessions. And what I'm going to do now is to give you an example from 23 semi-structured interview that we interviewed the students and learn about their self-regulated learning categories. And for this, we can move to the next slide. And for this, we first need to speak about the categories of self-regulated learning. So for example, in our research, we used the categories from a self-reported questionnaire developed by Bernard and published in his colleagues and published in 2009. And we speak about task strategies, time management, self-evaluation, help seeking, goal setting, and environment structuring. And if you think now about these categories, think about yourself as a learner. Probably you are doing some of it. Probably you have your task strategies that you learn even from high school, elementary school, and during your learning process. Some of you do have their goal settings, and maybe you have a few categories that you are not really used in your learning process. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to elaborate about the first 3 categories, the task strategies, the time management, and the self-evaluation. And then I'm going to discuss shortly about help seeking, goal setting, and environment structuring. I'm going to give you an examples from interviews with students who completed the course successfully. So for example, if I want to give you an example from task strategies, so I speak about students who learning, for example, according to the course assignments, or they have their own strategy to watch the online session. Some of them can decide that they watch a synchronous video session, some of them asynchronous video sessions. It means that they will see the record and not the live session. Maybe there are a few students that combine between the two of the options. Some of the students taking notes during the session, and some of them learning in a book. We have students that describe even how they're preparing themselves for the online session by reading the chapter in advance. And if we will take one example of what student told us is, every time we finish the topic, I try to answer a question in the assignment. I would even open the assignment during the lesson. I submit that way I get feedback from the lecture. And that is a real blessing for me. So these students used as a task strategy in the assignment. And as I mentioned before, in the course that we studied in the research, we have optional assignment and the mandatory assignments. So these students explained me that because the assignments were not mandatory, she feel okay to submit it even if she was not sure that she is going to get an A, because it was not necessarily something that will change her final grade in the course. So this is one example of task strategy that came up from the interview. And I think that all of you can think about your own task strategies. Another example that I will give you is about time management. So time management can be someone that really prepare his weekly learning schedule in advance. Some of the students told us that they are not preparing it something in advance, but they have like daily learning schedule, and they plan it every day. Some of the students don't really think about the time, but they are setting aside a few hours to study each day. And many of the students in the Open University of Israel combine their study the time. So one of the two students actually told us, I have a specific days and hours when I plan to learn according to my work schedule. I planned it in advance, day dedicated to my studies. Here we can see really example of a student that think about it in advance and she completed the course. And time management is a crucial aspect in learning in online environments. And there are research that shows that it can be 50% of the factors that influence about the completion of online course. And of course, we have many reasons to complete an online course, but this is something really crucial and is one of the aspects of self-regulated learning. Another category that I want to elaborate about is the self-evaluation. Using course, so everyone self-evaluate themselves. You can say that something is really difficult for you or easy for you, but when you do it with a high self-regulated learning, you will do it with, for example, by using the assignment or communication with classmates or lectures. And here is what one of the students told us about his self-evaluation. In an informal way, in the Open University of Israel, students use WhatsApp tool. I guess that they are doing it also in other institutions, but these students told us something like that. WhatsApp is a pretty significant tool, both a kind of social tool of people experience the same difficulty, and also a practical things, for example, comparing a question in an assignment. So they used in the WhatsApp in order to evaluate themselves. And if I will go to the next slide, so I want to tell you more about aspect of self-regulated learning, but just in a nutshell. So for example, we have the goal setting. Students in the Open University describe why they register to the course. But goal setting can be also something else. We can also define our short-term goals and just want to pass the exam or get a high grade, or even set a goal that we really want to understand chemistry or understand the material. Another aspect is environment structuring. And when we speak about environment structuring, it's not just the location and to find a quiet place and a table with a computer. It's also to think what I need to this session in order to learn. So if we are taking chemistry as an example, you need a calculator, the books, the periodic table. Think about yourself as a learner, or if you are a parent, maybe about your child, and if you watch him this year when they are in Zoom, if they are not prepared, they will go to the other room and try to look for other things, and it's something that can better for the learning process. So environment structuring is not just the location, but also what I need for my learning. Another thing is the help seeking. Sharing problem with classmate or lecturer, and don't wait for the end of the semester when you prepare yourself for the final exam and you feel that you don't understand, but share your problems at the beginning of the semester when someone can really help you. So were just a few more aspects in a nutshell. And now I want to give you an example of students who didn't complete the course. So of course that most of the students that agreed to be interviewed are those who completed the course, but we still have a few students who did not complete the course and agreed to be interviewed, and they told us something different. So first of all, they did not set aside a specific time for learning in their schedule. It was, I will learn whenever I have a free time, but they did not set a specific time. They often did not include any active learning activity, such as note taking or submitting optional assignment. Of course, that they had a strategy. We all have some kind of strategy. But for example, the live session or the record. So watching a record of a session, it's not like to see a TV show. You need to do something active, not just to sit on the couch and see the session. So this is also something that we can improve with self-regulated learning. And also, in contrast to students who completed the course successfully, they did not evaluate themselves according to the assignment or communication with classmates. They did say, it's difficult for me, the online learning is not really fit for me, but they didn't evaluate exactly what in the course. So now I gave you examples from interviews, and we try to demonstrate a few aspects of self-regulated learning. And now I want to show you how we can learn about the self-regulated learning of the students also from quantitative data. So I'm not going to go deep into this kind of method, but we use the method called educational data mining. And the idea is that when students interact with online information, many parameters about their activities are gathered and stored. And this can provide data for statistical analysis. And I mean something like when the student plays a video, in which week, what time, maybe there is a video that all students open twice or many more or a few times. And this is really complicated analysis. It's required pre-processing phase that is essential to create a real-based database. And we are not going to go deep on this. I just want to mention that what I'm going to present now is based on this analysis. And I will just mention again that everything were done under the ethical guidelines, and we kept the privacy of the students. So we can go on to the next slides. And based on our data, we built a developed model of logistic regression. Logistic regression, it's a model that gives you the probability of yes or no. If student is going to complete successfully the course, or if student is not going to complete successfully. And we are not going to go deep into the regression. And I see that I have 5 more minutes for the presentation. I will just want to show you that I used a few variables the university. For example, the advanced diploma, the socioeconomic status by district. But what we learned from two variables that are reflect self-regulated learning is the submission. We learned that the submission of the first optional assignment, it's something that can predict the success, which is actually part of the task strategies of the students. And also another variables that we calculate from the educational data mining method and actually reflect the students' time management and show how the students proceed in the course is also something that can predict success in the course. So it's not just from the interviews and from the theory, we can see that it works with students' online behavior. And I think we don't have time for the next slide, so I'll go to we will go it quickly and then to the summary one. So if I'm going to summarize what I want to demonstrate in this presentation, we discussed the advantages and disadvantages of online learning. And I think all of you experienced this in this year. And I also gave you an overview about self-regulated learning, the task strategies, the time management, self-evaluation, help seeking, goal setting, and environment structuring. And I try to do it through example from our research. Based on this, we have a few recommendations that we can discuss. So we'll go to the next slide. Okay, so if you're a lecturer, think about how you teach. How you choose to teach students to identify what is most challenging for them and get help in the early stage of the course. Maybe we can help students at the beginning of the course or before the middle of the course and not at the end of the course. But they need to know how to ask for help on time. And if we want to teach them SRL, teach them the self-regulated learning, so giving them general guidelines does not develop the self-regulated learning. For example, if we will send a daily email, it will not something that will help. We need to think how we can practice that in the content of the course being taught, how to teach them learning skills. And this is something that we can integrate in the curriculum. And if you are students and want to understand what you can take from this lecture, we will go to the next slide. One. So the recommendation if you're a student. So first, as I mentioned at the beginning, self-regulated learning is experience-based. We have it from elementary school and high school, and we all have some level of self-regulated learning. But you should be familiar with the principles of self-regulated learning, the goal setting and the time management, and think if you are actually execute them and what you are doing in your learning process. And the last thing, sometimes when we're taking a difficult course in chemistry and math in another discipline, and if we are not understanding, we will think about the content. Oh, maybe I need to ask someone about the content. Maybe I need a private teacher. But it's not just the content. The content of course, is important, but it's also develop your learning strategy in order to know how to learn. This is also something that can help you to complete the course successfully. So I think that with time we need to finish. And thank you all for listening. Thank you,